Good morning, Yidden. We are on the bottom of Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis 117b at the Gemara. Here it is, 117b. Kuf Yud Zayin Beis. There we are. So the Mishnah told us that about the third and fourth cup of wine. Good morning. And as follows: the third cup of wine, one is recite to drink over the benching. The benching is to be recited over the third cup of wine, and the fourth cup of wine, one is to recite the halal. That's what we learned in the Mishnah. Yeah, join us. We're on Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. It says the Gemara. Amalei Rav Chanan l'Rava. Rav Chanan said to Rava, Shmamina, perhaps we can derive from this Mishnah, Birchas hamazayin te'una kois, that benching requires a cup here. Birchas hamazayin te'una kois. The Birchas hamazayin requires a cup. What does he mean? He means as follows. We know that you may hold a cup of wine whilst reciting the benching. The question is, are you required to do so? Are you required to do so? Is that an obligation? For example, one second. If, for example, Kiddush requires a cup, it's not optional. When you make Kiddush, you have to have a cup of wine. That's what our sages instituted, yeah? When it comes to benching, maybe the same thing. When you recite the benching, you have to hold a cup of wine, perhaps. And maybe this Mishnah is a proof. In Masechta Brachos, it talks about the halachas of holding the cup. It doesn't state explicitly that you have to hold one, which sounds like it's optional. If you want to, you can. So maybe the fact that our Mishnah says the third cup of wine you're holding when you recite the benching, maybe that's the Mishnah telling you, hey, if you're benching, you got to hold a cup. Says, this is what Rav Chanan said to Rava. Amar lei, so Rava responds to Rav Chanan, no. The fact that you're holding another cup of wine by benching is not because benching requires you to hold a cup. But why? Because our sages implemented that a person should drink 4 cups of wine at the Seder. Because of freedom, not because of benching. Nonetheless, kol chad b'chad never been mitzvah. Each one will be associated with a different mitzvah. In other words, is it going this way or this way? Rav Chanan suggested it's from the brachas, you're being required to hold a cup. You're making Kiddush, hold a cup. You're benching, hold a cup. Implying that every time you bench, you have to hold a cup. Says Rav Chanan, no. The obligation starts with the 4 cups. Then, don't just drink 4 cups at random. With each one, do a mitzvah. And therefore, bench while you're holding the cup. But not because benching requires a cup, but because the cup requires the benching. Clear? Okay. End of the Gemara's discussion. Next discussion. So that was the Gemara's comment on the third cup of wine that's held during the benching. The Mishnah also said, last line, on Diamond Bays, yeah? 5th word, after the colon. Ravi, the 4th cup of wine. Goimer alavas halal, one is to complete the halal. That's what the Mishnah said, right? Because halal has already begun at the end of Magid. Before you drink your 2nd cup of wine, you begin the first 2 paragraphs of the halal. The 4th cup of wine, goimer alavas halal, you conclude the halal. Whilst with the 4th cup of wine present, right? So after you bench, you drink the 3rd cup, you right away refill the 4th, and that 4th cup is there present throughout the rest of your halal. Yes? And the Mishnah added, and you should say the blessing of song. Right? So what is that? Top of Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph, top of 118a. So turn the page. So Gemara asks, "My Birchas Ashir, what exactly is this blessing of song?" So what is it? What's the blessing of song referred to here? Now, Yehuda Amar Yehuda says, the paragraph which begins, which concludes, it's that last paragraph we say at the end of every time we say Hallel. So let's understand. The text of the Hallel itself is a selection from Tehillim. I actually want to bring a Tehillim. Aaron, can you get me a Tehillim, please, if you don't mind? Yeah, it should be, the bookshelf there on the hallway. So the Hallel is a selection of a number of chapters of Tehillim, right? We spoke about this yesterday or 2 days ago, that when you recite the complete Hallel, certainly you make a bracha before you recite the Hallel, because you have a mitzvah to say the Hallel, and before you do any mitzvah, you thank Hashem for the mitzvah, right? So you make a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you, God our Lord, who has commanded us to say the Hallel. Good. When you conclude the Hallel, there's also a bracha made. That's the Hallelujah. That Hallelujah doesn't come from Tehillim, right? The Tehillim, it's the Hallel itself is chapters 113, I believe. Yeah, from 113 through 118, which ends Hod Hashem Ketev K'Leilam Chazdai. And then we say Hallelujah, that's a bracha. So it says that's the Birchas Hashir. So yeah, that's the chapters of the Hallel. Maybe. Okay. But Rabbi Yochanan says it's not only the Hallelujah, but also Nishmas Kol Chai. Meaning, this is Rabbi Yochanan's logic, as Rashbam explains it for us. We always say Hallelujah. Every time we say Hallel, we have that bracha at the end, Hallelujah, with the Baruch Atah Hashem, with the bracha at the conclusion of a Hallel. Yes, every time. So if the Mishnah is telling us to say Birchas Hashir, it means it's telling us to do something more than usual. What's more than usual? Says Rabbi Yochanan, Nishmas Kol Chai. And that's the halacha. At the night of the Seder, after we complete the Hallel, we say Nishmas Kol Chai. And then we say Hallelujah at the end. Right? Okay.
Didn't we say last lesson that
Yeah.
there's no beginning bracha because there's a forced interruption?
So maybe that's a very good point. We said that we don't make an opening bracha because if you split the Hallel in half, it's a forced interruption.
And not a voluntary.
Yes, halachically mandated split in Hallel. Yes, we spoke about that. Yeah. So maybe that's the logic of Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Huda is saying, even though you don't make an opening bracha because it's being interrupted, the concluding bracha you do make, and that's what the Mishnah's chiddush here is. But for Rabbi Yochanan, that's not a big enough chiddush, and therefore he says, "Oh, it's also nishmas." You have to say. Maybe that's the logic here. Very good. I wasn't going to bring it up because you did. That's perhaps you follow what you said there. Because the Gemara says like this: Yehuda said you say Birchas Hashir, you say Hallelujah, right? Rabbi Yochanan said that can't be what the Mishnah is saying because you always say Hallelujah. It must be something else, nishmas. So what was Rabbi Yehuda thinking? So maybe what Rabbi Yehuda's thinking is the Mishnah's chiddush is even though you're not making the opening bracha because it's split, and maybe therefore you might think don't make the closing bracha because it's split. And the Mishnah says no, Birchas Hashir. Say the bracha at the end.
We didn't really discuss the ending bracha.
Oh, but now the Gemara is discussing the bracha.
Saying likewise, it's also wouldn't be said.
You might think it might be
You
said,
might not think.
and therefore comes the Mishnah and says a chiddush. No, you say Birchas Hashir. Yes, that's the novelty. That's how Rabbi Yehuda is understanding the Mishnah. But Rabbi Yochanan comes and says, no, that's not enough of a chiddush. Even though it's split, you would still be making the concluding bracha. So what's the novelty of the Mishnah? That you're going to add Mishpas Kol Chai. Maybe that's what the Gemara's discussion here is, built on the fact that we know we're not saying the opening bracha because it's split. But nonetheless, comes the chiddush, and you do make the concluding bracha. Maybe that's what's happening in the Mishnah. Yeah, you follow that? You follow that? Yeah, okay, good. Right there. Continue to Gemara. Tana Rabbanan, our sages taught. Yeah, this is a Mishnaic era text that didn't make it to the final cut of the Mishnah. So it's a brayser, tesefta, something like that. So it says like this. Revi, the fourth cup of wine, going by the love of Hallel, you complete the Hallel, just like our Mishnah said, you complete the Hallel. Then it added something else. And you shall say the great Hallel. We're going to discuss in a moment what the great Hallel is, the big Hallel. Give it Rabbi Tarfon. This is Rabbi Tarfon's opinion. Okay, so far we have, if we're following all the opinions, after we finish benching and drink the third cup of wine, we fill up a fourth cup of wine, and we have to A, complete the Hallel, which we started before. B, we got to say Nishmas. We have to say Hallelujah, the Birchas Hashir. And now we have to say something called Hallel HaGadol, the big Hallel, whatever that is. Okay? The Yesh Amim, others say that what you should say is, you should say Hashem Roi Lo Yachzar, which is chapter chapter 23 of Tehillim. Hashem Roi Lo Yachzar. Okay, this opinion we don't follow. We don't say Midbar Hashem Roy Leachs are in our halal, but this is the opinion here. And as Rashbam explains, because Hashem Roy Leachs talks about Hashem being a shepherd and doesn't and provides and does not what's the word? Doesn't fail to provide for us, and that's like a kind of continuation of benching, thanking Hashem for providing for us. But the halakha is not following this. Okay. What exactly is this great halal? What's the big halal? Halal itself, we know. It's we just finished saying it's chapters 113 through 118 up to Hillim. That's the halal. What's the halal gadol? What's the great halal? What's big halal? So says the Gemara like this. That says, Mehaidu ad Nahares Bavel. So let's understand where we are. Nahares Bavel, which we say before our benching most days, is chapter 135 of Tehillim. Okay? 135 of Tehillim begins with the word Al Nahares Bavel. 136, I'm sorry. Right, I'm sorry, 137. Why is this? Yes, 137. Okay, so 137 is Al Nahares Bavel. Okay, now this is going to be the conclusion. Al Nahares Bavel already begins sad Tehillim, right? On the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and we cried, right? So it's sad. That's not part of the halal. So, but the halal is going to conclude at Al Nahares Bavel. The question is, how far back do you go to include in the great halal? Follow me, what you said? Yeah. What the beginning of 137 is going to be the end. 137 is not going to be part of the great halal. How far back in Tehillim do you go to include in the great halal? Okay. So first opinion is you go back to Haidul Hashem, which is the beginning of 136. So basically, opinion number one, which is Rabbi Huda, who says you go from Haidu, beginning of 136, till Nahares Bavel 137. Basically, he's saying chapter 136 is the great halal, which is basically all the Haidul Hashem Kitav Tefillim Chazdais. 136 is 26 verses, each one concluding with Hiloi Lam Chazdai.
Is this considered like a separate halal from?
Correct. There's halal agadol. We'll talk about why it's called halal agadol. There's halal and then there's a great halal. So the great halal says that is basically 136 of Tehillim, which is the Hiloi Lam Chazdai. That's how we know it. The 26 verses. That's right, 26 verses, each of which conclude with the words Hiloi Lam Chazdai. This is the great halal. We'll explain why it's called the great halal scene. We say it every Shabbos morning before Rosh Hashanah. It's right. Since you like this kind of stuff, it's 26 lines corresponding to 26. What's 26? Noon? What's 26? 26 lines of Haidul Hashem Kitov Tefillim Chazdai is corresponding to 26. The number of the name of Hashem as it appears in our Siddur. If you look at our Siddur on Shabbos morning, you'll see it says the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, indicating that they are corresponding to Hashem's name. Okay, that's the great halal according to Behuda. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan says, Mishir HaMalois. You got to start from Shir HaMalois and go all the way till Al Nahares Bavel. Now, I don't know which Shir HaMalois it is. Which Shir HaMalois is it? Oh, exactly. Because 136 begins Haidul Hashem Kitov Tefillim Chazdai, the 26 Tefillim Chazdais. Shir HaMalois, there's 15 Shir HaMalois, starting with chapter 120, right? 120 is the first Shir HaMalois. And then there's 15 of them, which takes us from 120 all the way through 135. Or 134. 135 is Haluka Halu Hashem Hashem Halu Abda Hashem Hashem B'Leilos. Must be Silakenum. Okay, so which Shir HaMalois is Rabbi Yochanan talking about? So it's at least. I know it's a funny thing. So, but we don't. The halacha doesn't follow this anyway, which is maybe why the Gemara doesn't discuss it. I don't know, because we don't say Shir HaMalois at the night of our seder. We do say the 16 halalukas. We do say the 16. We do say 26 kilo chazdais, but I don't know that we say Shir HaMalois at our seder. I don't remember that. Anybody remember saying Shir HaMalois at their seders? Not that I remember.
Could you look at a different of one of the old masters?
Maybe we can look that up. I don't know. Perhaps.
We've done that in the past.
We have. So maybe we could do that. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't tell us. Anyway,
the Rebbe doesn't comment.
we should look. I doubt it, but I can look it up. I don't remember. So, okay, so 136 is definitely part of it because you're going till Al Nais Bavel. 135 is also part of it, according to Rabbi Yochanan, because 135 doesn't begin with Sher Males. The question is, do you start from 134, 136, 132, 131, back to 120? Which Sher Males? I don't know. Maybe. We'll have to look it up. Let's look it up. Maybe we will get there. Okay, continues the Gemara. Sorry. Yeah, Rabbi Acha Bar Yaakov Amar. So that was opinion 2. Opinion 1 is just chapter 136. Opinion 2, start from Shir Malis and go till the end of 136. What's Shir Malis? We don't know which one. Rabbi Acha, son of, I imagine it's all of them. That was my default thinking. Because he didn't qualify, I would imagine it's all the way back to 120.
I was thinking the opposite. I
Oh,
think
it's to the last one?
first one. Not meaning the last one, right? One closest to 137.
Yeah, it's either the one closest or the last one. Otherwise, he would tell us which one. You're right.
Yeah.
It's either one of the two, but it's in the middle. Would it make sense? Unless you would qualify and say which one. Yeah, good question. Good point. Okay, so that's opinion 2. Opinion 3. Rabbi Acha, son of Yaakov, says, "Miki Yaakov Bachar lo yikah." Start from beginning of 135. Actually, 135 verse 4. That's what he says to do.
That's odd.
No comment. Not from Rashi, not from Rashbam, and not from Tosfos. So I don't know. I'm sure there are commentaries on that, but starting from chapter verse 4 of 135 and then all the way through 136. That is his opinion. 1 through 136. 137 already begins. Al Narais.
I'm saying not inclusive.
Not inclusive, yes. Not inclusive. That's right. Still Ad Narais bubble. Okay. Sorry?
It's not in order.
We are going in order. We are going in order. What do you mean not in order?
You just said it's not in order. You just mentioned.
No, it is in order. He's just starting in the middle of a chapter for some reason. He's starting at verse 4 of 135, which is kind of odd, but that's what he's doing. Okay. Says the Gemara, the Lamba Niprish Mahal Gola. Why is it called the Great Halal? Especially considering the fact that according to our opinion, which is the halacha, Rabbi Huda's opinion, which is just the 26 lines of Hoidel Hashem Kitev K'lelam Chazdai, it's actually smaller than the halal. So why are we calling it the Great Halal? It'll be connected to Hashem's name, but we'll see not exactly. We'll have to infer that. Let's see. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, because Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev b'Merayim Shel Olam, God sits at the height of the universe, Machalak Mezainos, and divvies up sustenance, l'chol beria, for every single creation. In the Hoidel Hashem K'lelam Chazdai, it makes mention of the fact, it says, He gives bread to all flesh, for his name is everlasting. For his kindness is everlasting. Yes? So because it talks about kindness, and it talks about Hashem giving parnasa to everybody, therefore it's called the Great Halal. Why is giving parnasa called great? Why is parnasa called great? Gadol. So if you know a little bit of Kabbalah, then you know that Midas HaChesed is called what in Kabbalah? Anybody? What's Midas HaChesed called? Ariel, no? What's Midas HaChesed called in Kabbalah? What's the pasuk in Torah that tells us the 7 midos? Anybody know? Which pasuk in Torah tells us the 7 midos? We say it every day in our davening. L'cha Hashem, Hagdula, V'Agavura, V'Tiferes, V'Netzach, V'Ahoid. Hikol is Yisoid. L'cha Hashem HaMamlacha is Malchus. That's where we get the 7 spheres from the Psukim. So L'cha Hashem HaGedula, which is what? The first of the 7 spheres? It's Chesed. Gedula is called Chesed. So the Chesed, Hashem giving, is Gedula, is Gadol. Okay, so we have an association, a word association. Gedula is referred to, Gedula, grandeur is referred to as Chesed. Or Chesed is referred to as Gedula. And because this talks about Chesed, Hashem providing, but it's Gedula, it's Gadol.
Providing to Hesed.
Okay, well, Chesed is providing, right? It's to give, to flow.
Yeah.
So why is that called Gadol? So now you have a word association, right? The Chesed in Kabbalah is called Gedula. And here it's Kilelam Chadai, it's Chesed, especially as Rabbi Yochanan said it, that the pasuk refers to Hashem providing sustenance to everybody. Therefore, it's called Gedula. Okay, why is Chesed called Gedula? Why is Chesed grandeur? So it's actually deceptively simple. We spoke about this in our Tanya class. All emotional feelings are in one of 2 directions. Either I am going from inward, pushing outward, or I'm going outward, pulling inward. Anxiety, fear, depression, sadness is all pulling inward. Some of them are good pulling inward, and some of them are bad pulling inward. Discipline is a very good pulling inward. I'm pulling inward to hold myself in, to contain myself. Right? Anxiety is a bad pulling inward. Yeah. So, but all various combinations of pulling inward, retreating inward, that is all on the left side in Kabbalah, in the Gvura side, to pull inward, to contain, to withhold. Then there are other emotions, which is to give outward. Love is a giving outward, certainly. There's all kinds of giving outward. It's also unhealthy giving outward. Immaturity sometimes giving outward, just expressing myself wherever because I want to express myself. I need to get it off my chest, something like that, right? So there are good giving outwards and backing outwards. But the point is that the emotion of chesed, the emotion of giving is gadol, is to expand, is to flow outward. And that's chesed. And that is the providing of sustenance, where it flows outward from Hashem to provide to lowly creatures, even if they're undeserving, and even though they are infinitesimally distant. And when I say undeserving, I don't mean undeserving because I didn't do mitzvahs. That's also true, but undeserving because our very existence is unearned.
That's chesed, that's outward.
That's outward. That's why it's gadol. That's physically, literally, it's big. It expands as opposed to contracts inward. It expands outward. Correct. And again, undeserving doesn't necessarily mean, it's true, it means that a person does mitzvahs, he deserves, doesn't do mitzvahs, doesn't deserve. But beyond that, anything finite deserves nothing in the face of infinite. No matter how amazing you think your finite life is, it's still finite in the face of infinite. And it's truly Hashem's kindness, that kindness in the sense of Hashem's desire to expand outward, that gives life to anything, period. That's nice and lechem basar. He's giving sustenance to all, which ties perfectly in line with the next line of the Gemara. Let's see. Amar Rabbi Shuban Levi. Rabbi Shuban Levi says, the first of the wide set of lines. Now the second, last word, the first of the wide set of lines. Hani esin v'shisha haidu. These 26 haidus, each one ending kilalam chada, for your kindness is great. So 26 times you say your kindness is everlasting. Keneged me, corresponding to what are these 26 said? Not name of Hashem, at least not here, not overtly. Keneged me, this is elsewhere in the Gemara as well. That's not the only place in the Gemara which discusses this. Keneged chavav dardais, corresponding to 26 generations. Shebara Kadosh Baruch Hu b'olam, which God created in His world. V'lo nosem lama Torah, didn't give them Torah. So there's 26 generations from Adam Rishon, until Moshe Rabbeinu. 26 generations, no Torah, and Hashem is providing for them. And His giving is purely on God's kindness. Once Torah is here, then Hashem says, okay, my investment is going to be commensurate to the fulfillment of the purpose of my investment. What we're learning in Tanya today. Hashem's internal desire is that there be the performance of Torah and mitzvahs. We're learning in Tanya for the last week. Hashem's internal desire is that there be Torah and mitzvahs. And that internal desire of Torah mitzvahs justifies the external desire of all creation. Right? This is all over the Medrash. The Medrash, for example, famously says that Yom HaShishi, the sixth day. Wait, when it says day one, it says Yom Rishon. When it says day two by creation, it says Yom Sheni. When it comes to the sixth day, it says Yom HaShishi, the sixth day. Why the? It explains our sages. Because it's dependent on the sixth day of Sivan, where Hashem gives the Torah. Because if there's going to be a Torah, then creation is worthwhile. No Torah, creation is not worthwhile. So once Torah exists, the giving of Hashem is not purely on chesed. It's not yes, Gvura is associated with Torah, that's true, but it's also given with a mix of Gvura in the sense that it has a purpose. The giving is to see if there's a return on the investment, Torah. But before the Torah is given, there are 26 generations where the investment is free. It's like when you build a business and the first couple of years, you're not turning a profit. You're not turning a profit. You're actually turning a loss. What? Yeah, Levi. But no, you make an investment in a business, right? The first couple of years, sometimes a long time, where you're operating at a loss, right? But it's a free investment with the hope that eventually we're going to turn a profit. But till you get there, it's like purely the person's expansionism that says, I'm going to put into this business before anything comes back. That's Gedula. That's the chesed. That's the grandeur that expands the gift for 26 generations until Torah comes on the scene. And once Torah comes on the scene, now we're starting to get a return on the investment. So the investment of Hashem in creation post-Torah is not in the same kind of chesed that was before. Yes? Clear?
Each generation, how many years?
It's a good question, but roughly, let's say 20, I don't know. Why?
26 generation, how many?
So you do the math. What year was Torah given?
120 years.
What year was Torah given? What year was Torah given?
The time of Moshe Rabbeinu.
What year? You know? Year 3000 something. So that's how many, count how many years there are from creation to the Torah is given, and then you'll split it in 26 and you'll get your answer. But really it's not about that, because before the flood, generations are much longer. But you can't, correct, but if you just count generations literally, Adam to his child, 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 you get to Moshe Rabbeinu with 26.
Some texts have that outline.
Yeah, you can, there are many charts available to do this.
You can save yourself some time.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one approach to the understanding of the grandeur of the chesed here. And tomorrow we're going to see a little bit of a different approach coming from the chesed, and it's going to give us a different understanding of Hashem's providing for the world. Because till now, when we're talking about Hashem providing for the world, we're talking Hashem providing for the world from Hashem's perspective. Even if Torah is not there yet, He's giving freely because Hashem wants to give. It's a free investment. 26 generations till Torah is given. It's gedulah, it's grandeur, it's giving. But once Torah gives, the playing field changes now already. Now the world, Hashem is providing for the world conditionally, provisionally to Torah. Right? So we're going to see tomorrow how the chesed, so tomorrow I'm not here, and day after I'm not here. So we'll see on Friday, God willing, how the chesed changes, adapts a little bit. Once Torah is given, it's going to give us a different appreciation for what it means that Hashem provides for our parnasa. And what it means Hashem's chesed in the post-Torah world, which is the world that we live in. So we'll get to that, God willing, on Friday. Wonderful day, and then we'll pick up with Hashem's help on Friday. Thank you very much. And the sun is here too, but I'll have you in mind with the sun there as well.
Vacation too.
It's not really vacation. It's a vacation, yes, but I'm going to. Oh, for you. No, you still have to learn Torah. What do you mean? Okay. Have a good day, Eden.
Anyway.
No, why is tomorrow job there?
Job to what?
Job, this stuff.
What do you mean? It's discussing this.
Yeah.
It's discussing this because we're discussing the Neder Seder, and there's an opinion the Gemara introduced here which says that Neder Seder, which is the halacha, you have to also include the halal gadol. So the Gemara, first of all, the Gemara know what is the halal gadol, and then the Gemara is going to understand what's the meaning of the halal gadol, right? Because it's part of the program of the Neder Seder, which is what we're learning about here in this Gemara. So it does flow. It's not completely random. It still flows. Okay. Have a wonderful day, Eden.